California introduces a bill that is taking rights away from parents, also known as the trap bill. Let's get into it. Welcome back. My following is Pride Month as we're covering all things Pride, all things LGBTQ as it falls under my community. Here we are going over a California Assembly bill that has been introduced by, of course, by the Democratic Party. And so it's basically a bill that is going to combat the parent notification policy that has been sweeping our state in notifying parents in regards to their child's gender identity. Now, all those that have kept up with this story from my Instagram, Twitter, and all of my feeds, you would know that California has been implementing locally at district level is parent notification policies that will notify a parent if their child's mental health care changes while under the delegated duty of a school district. These school districts would be required to notify the parent traditionally when in writing, letting the parent know that their child has in fact changed their official records, their gender identity, or is requesting to participate in sports outside of their normal biological sex. Why is this important? Because children that usually identify outside of their biological sex have a higher chance of suicide, mental health issues, and those types of things. So it's very imperative. It's actually imperative that we incorporate parents in this discussion because Xing them out actually does detrimental stuff or has a detrimental impact to that child and their life going forward. So keeping that away from the parents actually does this student disservice. Now, we've deep dived into the data in regards to what happens when children do identify, and I'll leave that in a card here. So if you guys want to deep dive into what has transpired with children and why people have this argument of what is going to be discussed here, I've already deep dived into it. I've gone over it in full detail and have provided the facts of what has actually happened and the legal statutes behind it as well. So if you want that type of video, please head over to the card and then it will go over that. Right now, we're going to go over the Taking Rights Away from Parents bill that has been introduced by our California State Assembly. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read the initial premise of this bill so you guys can get an idea of what it is that they are wanting. This bill would prohibit school districts, county offices of education, charter schools, and state special schools, and a member of a governing board or body of those educational entities from enacting or enforcing any policy, rule, or administrative regulation that requires an employee or contractor to disclose any information related to the pupil is student, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or any other person without the pupil's consent without otherwise required by law as provided. What's interesting is that they are now combating something that they thought was illegal. So originally when this policy was being implemented across like Chino Valley Unified School District, Temecula, and in Orange and others, they were basically saying that the policy was illegal, yet they needed to update the law to affirm that. I didn't know our state government policies needed to be reaffirmed. I thought the law was the law. But that's something that I just digress on. Obviously, it wasn't illegal. They're trying to make it illegal with the introduction of this trap bill. What's interesting is this bill also goes over something a little bit different outside of a gender notification to parents. It talks about how the bill restricts governing boards and entities and contractors and all that from actually retaliating against an educator or a teacher from exercising their right to keep the student's identity a secret from parents. Why I raise this up is because where is the mass exodus from Orange Unified School District, Temecula Valley, or Chino Valley Unified, or any of the other schools that have implemented this policy for teachers not going to support it? Literally, our teachers union in my local district blatantly said that they will not follow these policies, and yet they're still employed. So you have educators going on national television saying that they're not going to follow these policies and nothing has happened. So already in my eyes, this is a showing of just basic BS, in my opinion, when it comes to what is actually transpiring. The reason I say that is because nothing in this bill has developed children creating or being put in danger because of gender notification policy. If we did, we would have saw a much higher amount of suicide rates, child abuse, parents being jailed for child abuse coming out of Florida, considering it's a statewide issue and a statewide regulation that has been placed on all of the districts there. So where is that data to support the outlook of that? Secondly, I've only seen teachers be fired if they want to tell parents, if they don't want to keep secrets from them. So automatically saying that someone shouldn't be retaliated against because they want to keep secrets seems like useless to me, because no one, in my understanding, has been fired for not following a parent notification policy that has been implemented in these districts here in California. So let's read about what's actually inside the bill that helps support these ideas that they have in Sacramento. Choosing to come out by disclosing an LGBTQ plus identity and to whom are deeply personal decisions, impacting health and safety, as well as critical relationships that every LGBTQ person has the right to make for themselves. Not disclosing, like I already mentioned, a child changing their gender identity under the delegated duty of a school district automatically puts that child at risk. Children that identify as a gender outside of their biological sex have a higher chance of suicide. Not only that, people that fall within the LGBTQIA plus umbrella actually have higher suicide rates, higher mental health issues, higher drug addiction than any of our heterosexual counterparts. So not incorporating the parents actually contributes to that. How do we know? Because in this bill, they talk about how supportive environments is crucial to the success of a child that identifies outside of their biological sex. So if support from their child, from an environment for that child is important, do we think not telling a parent is going to help or worsen that scenario? I've argued that it worsens it, because most parents, the overwhelming majority of parents, actually support their children. And I always talk about, if a child comes to a parent and says, you know what? I don't have supportive parents. They are abusive. They will abandon me, neglect me, or, anything like that. Why is that not a trigger into an investigation for that child, regardless of what the topic is that transpired, that confession from that child? Why are we not investigating a potential chance of child abuse? That is concerning. It's concerning that we are taking at face value these things and not following up with them. But I digress. What I thought was interesting is they use a very specific word here, and those that follow me know that I am very, very much into the verbiage that people use, and I will go over it in just a second. Parents and families have an important role to play in the lives of young people, children. Studies confirm that LGBTQ youth thrive when they have parental support and feel safe sharing their full identities with them. But it can be harmful to force young people to share their full identities before they are ready. Why is Sacramento constantly referring to children as young people? That's concerning to me. These are children. These aren't young people. They're not young adults. They're children here that we're talking about. But it can be harmful to force young people to share their full identities before they are ready. It either is or it isn't. And for me, it's not, because we're not seeing an overwhelming amount of parents abusing, abandoning, or neglecting their children here in California, especially California, when it comes to identity. I thought we were such a liberal state, a progressive state that supported these types of things. So if we're going to support these types of things, and we have that deeply ingrained in our political ideologies here, why are we still keeping this from parents? No one can ever answer that question. But this trap bill does exactly that. It traps parents into thinking that this is needed for the LGBT community when it's not. It's taking rights away from parents. And that's the only purpose of this bill. It's going to restrict you as parents, especially parents of LGBTQ plus students, that they don't have the same rights as heterosexual students' parents. So in a way, this bill discriminates against the LGBTQ plus community. It discriminates the parents of a child that identifies within this umbrella. Now, Why is it that a heterosexual student that doesn't identify within this umbrella, parents have full access to that child's mental health care? However, if the child does fall under this umbrella, that's not something we need to disclose to them. You literally, on its face, are discriminating against my community, but you think that you're helping them. But I digress. I love using their arguments against them. We all know that. So, LGBTQ plus students have the right to express themselves freely at school without fear, punishment, or retaliation, including that teachers or administrators might out them without their permission. What I've noticed from my community, this is saboteur is what we call it. Our community feels that they need to restrict who they are because they are ashamed of who they are. And for me, when you have an outlook like that, you start generating a false sense of fear that we can't tell our parents or that we shouldn't tell our parents because we don't know what is going to happen. We fear the unknown. And so for me, an overwhelming majority of parents do support their children. Actually, in countless coming out stories that you see across the internet, people's parents already know. They're just waiting for their child to come forward. Now, the question is when that child makes that decision at school and they're not being supported at home because the parents are unaware of that decision, that child is now living a double life and going down a journey that fully separates their life from school and the parents, living a life that the parents have no idea what is going on and the school supporting those secrets. It's taking away the rights from parents to be able to supersede and have an overlook of their child's mental health care, especially while at school. The way that they're treated at school should be the same way that they're treated at home, and a parent should have that opportunity to support their child. But this bill takes away the rights from parents to be able to do that. It traps people into thinking it's supportive of my community, and it's not. So, this is what was deeply concerning to me. They referenced in this bill the Q community as questioning, meaning lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender, and questioning. This used to be something called queer questioning, and they're referencing it here in this bill as questioning. Now, I don't know about you guys, but shouldn't children not be contemplating what their sexual identity is? Shouldn't they be learning and understanding the things and the curriculum that is being placed in front of them, not determining at school what their sexual identity is going to be? And the reason I bring this up is because a majority of kids should be questioning because they don't know. They're not experimenting. They're not deep diving into those types of behaviors as they shouldn't be. Nor should they be exploring these ideas with educators and people at schools. That's not a conversation for a child to be having with a teacher. So if we can sit here and agree that most children are not sexually active, the ones that aren't should be questioning because they don't know. They haven't explored that journey. They haven't had that conversation with their parents yet. So that's concerning. That's basically saying everyone falls within the LGBTQ. And now that opens up the door for a potential of booming. I have to watch my words. And that's deeply concerning. When they talk about a child's safety within this bill, they use the Trevor Project to justify these actions. The survey in which the Trevor Project is providing our government isn't even surveying solely students or children. It's surveying even adults of whether or not they have an affirming environment at work. And we're using that data to determine policy for an educational institution handled by minors, or sorry, there to cater to minors. What do people with jobs have to do with that policy? And why are we doing that? Why are we incorporating data from adults to determine a child's policy? That does not make sense. They also got this data from Facebook Marketplace. Or I'm sorry, Facebook. utilizing Facebook ads to target surveys to people. That's the data that we're using. That's the reliable source that we're going to utilize to make policies within our country. This is the United States of America, not a third world country, not a country where we don't have access to super high technology to be able to obtain the data that we need. Utilizing Facebook and using that data to determine laws in our country is absolutely insane to me. Absolutely insane to me. So this bill takes rights away from parents, traps them into thinking that the LGBTQ plus whatever community needs to live in fear for our lives here, apparently. There's obviously a mass grave that none of us know about. There's obviously a high amount of child abuse that is happening that no one is reporting. There's high amounts of child suicide that no one is willing to disclose, or attempts of suicide that no one is willing to disclose, to need this policy because it's not happening. Sacramento wants to tell you parents that you don't have access to your child's mental health care while at school. Your child is old enough to make these decisions without your consent, knowledge, or even consideration for the journey in which they're going to take in their life. And you, as a parent, just have to put up with it. That's absolutely insane to me. And a lot of the people that advocate for these bills, in my experience, are straight. They're not even parents of students that identify, or of children that identify within the LGBT community. They're going based off things like the Trevor Project, inaccurate data that supports these decisions and these ideologies. This trap bill that has been introduced in California, in my opinion, goes against the 14th Amendment. And the only reason why it has been introduced is to go against our state constitution, knowing that it's going to take years for the pro-parent movement to be able to combat it and take it to the Supreme Court. So not only are you taking rights away from parents, you're also willfully violating our constitution here in the state of California. This is deeply concerning as a resident here. It should be deeply concerning to parents of our district, or I'm sorry, of our state. Just know that this has not passed yet. It is something that has been introduced, and it has to pass, I believe, our a committee, the actual assembly. Like, it has to go. It's right now, it's in the education committee, I believe, and now it has to be sent. I believe it passed the education committee, and now it has to be voted on and approved by the state assembly as a whole, and not just within the committee of itself. So right now, it's just something that has been introduced. It's not something that has been determined and enacted yet. So we'll see. I'll cover this story and ensure that we are all kept up to date of what is actually transpiring. But as of right now, nothing has changed. It's just something that's within the works. So let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think this, taking rights away from parents is actually doing that? Or do you think that this is something the LGBTQIA plus community is something that they need? Because I'd like to hear your guys' feedback. Other than that, you guys, I will update you on the next update. Make sure you like, favorite, subscribe, or whatever. I need to get better at doing that. This way you can get notified when I post. If you guys haven't already, make sure you bookmark frankrodriguezshow.com. This way you can keep up to date with the things that I do offline, the articles that I produce. This video will be there to support an article that I'll be publishing below it. So make sure you guys stay tuned and see what happens next. Much love from me, and I hope it hits your heart.